What year did Marianne occur?
72.
Okay, 1972.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 10 serial killers who went decades without being caught.
I mean, is he still active? Is he still killing? Because to the best of our knowledge, he had stopped.
David Parker Ray.
Quite frankly, disgusting, the depth of perversion and the extent of criminality involved in this case.
The toy box killer was never technically convicted of a single murder. However, authorities strongly suspect that he was involved in about 60 killings, most of which were conducted in his sick toy box. This was the name of the soundproof semi-trailer in which Ray took, imprisoned, tormented, and eventually murdered his victims.
Police begin their search of the site to gather physical evidence for the case. What they unearth sickens even the most experienced investigators.
Most of these crimes occurred in the 1980s, long before Ray was captured in 1999. However, Ray claims that his crimes go back much earlier, and he even told his wife that he murdered his first victim in 1957 when he was just 18 years old. If this story is true, that would mean Ray went 42 years between murdering his first victim and getting caught.
When you look at the evidence that's been collected to date, when you look at the crime scene, it is clearly evident that in this particular case, anything is possible. And we will not rule out the possibility that this case does involve homicide.
Terry Rasmusen.
Everybody came out. We actually had to contact a medical examiner, and they confirmed that they did appear to be human remains.
Known as the Chameleon Killer owing to his many aliases, Terry Rasmusen was officially convicted of one murder but has been linked to at least 5 more. He is strongly suspected of killing the Allenstown Four victims that were found inside barrels in New Hampshire's Bear Brook State Park.
On May 9th in 2000, New Hampshire State Police Detective John Cody found a second barrel on the same property in Allenstown. That barrel contained the remains of 2 more of Rasmussen's victims.
These victims are believed to have died between 1978 and 1981, and one of them was found to be the biological daughter of Rasmusen. He is also suspected of murdering his girlfriend, Denise Bowden, who disappeared in 1981. But the death that finally brought Rasmusen down was that of Eunsun Jun, another girlfriend that Rasmusen murdered in 2002. He was arrested for her murder that same year, decades after supposedly killing his other 5 victims.
Well, when you find the second barrel, how soon after did you start thinking we might have a serial killer?
You know, I think that was in the realm of possibilities. I'm sure it was originally discussed.
Robert Lee Yates.
2 years after murdering 2 students at Mill Creek, the killer, 25-year-old Robert Lee Yates Jr., joined the army. In October, he decided to become a pilot. But during his 18 years of service, he could not contain his murderous urges.
A seemingly normal man, Robert Lee Yates served many years with the United States Army, serving as a helicopter pilot between 1977 and 1996. By the time he left the Army, he had already murdered 3 people. His crime spree dates back to 1975, when he shot and murdered Patrick Oliver and Susan Savage while they were picnicking near Walla Walla.
This was an area that he knew quite well. It was out in the middle of nowhere, and he was fairly confident that he wasn't going to be disturbed. And it wouldn't surprise me if he'd been fantasizing about this for quite some time. And he comes across 2 college graduates, and he decides that he's going to kill them. And that's what he does.
He then went quiet until 1988, when he killed Stacy Hahn. But most of Yates's murders occurred in the late 1990s, after he had left active service. He murdered 13 people around Spokane County between 1996 and 1998, bringing his total body count to 16. He was finally arrested and charged in 2000, 25 years after shooting Oliver and Savage.
In an ironic twist of fate, he's now housed in the same facility that he once served in as a prison guard 25 years earlier. A fitting end for the monstrous murderer.
Robert Durst.
What the hell did I do? Kill them all, of course.
Famed subject of HBO's The Jinx, Robert Durst definitely killed 2 people and possibly 4 others between 1971 and 2003. Authorities strongly suspect that Durst murdered his first wife, Kathleen McCormick, who disappeared in 1982. Fast forward 18 years when Durst murdered his friend, Susan Berman, in December 2000.
In an office waiting to interview someone, and I look at the Daily News, and there's this tiny little story out of LA that Susan Berman was found shot dead in LA, and I almost fell out of my chair. I just sat straight up and I wanted to leave.
He also killed his neighbor Morris Black in 2001, but he was acquitted of murder, with Durst successfully claiming self-defense. Aside from those core three, Durst is also a suspect in 3 other disappearances, including that of Lynn Schultz, who visited Durst's store in 1971 and subsequently vanished. It wasn't until The Jinx aired in 2015 that investigators re-examined his past, and he was convicted of Susan Berman's murder in 2021.
New York real estate heir Robert Durst has been convicted of his best friend's murder. Yesterday, a Los Angeles jury found him guilty of killing Susan Berman back in 2000. Prosecutors say it was to cover up the disappearance of his wife in 1982.
Rex Huerman.
The internet essentially goes insane, and a big part of that is because there was no information for so long. I mean, it was something that was unfathomable for so many people.
For many years, the Long Island serial killer was one of the most famous examples of a modern-day serial killer eluding justice. News of the killer broke in late 2010 when the remains of 4 victims were found alongside Ocean Parkway near Gilgo, New York. 7 more were found throughout the following year, all of them scattered around Ocean Parkway. This remained a tantalizing mystery until 2023, when a New York architect named Rex Huerman was arrested and charged with some of the murders.
Rex Huerman had searched for information about the Gilgo Beach murders more than 200 times.
The thing that sort of jumps out at you was he was also searching for the victims' family members, their sisters, and in one instance, their child. So that was concerning.
Police have since connected Huerman with many older crimes, including the murder of Sandra Castilla, which occurred in 1993. As of 2025, he has been charged with murdering 7 women, including Castilla.
But that is what prosecutors are saying. They believe that around that time, 1993, Rex Huerman began this killing spree. And that is really the really big news out of what we're hearing today.
Samuel Little.
And we ran into some water running. But before we got to the water, the earth was mushy. I turned her loose, and she fell into it face down.
The FBI has officially linked Samuel Little to 60 murders, making him the most prolific serial killer in American history. However, his true body count is likely much higher, with Little himself confessing to 93. Little's penchant for murder came on the radar in 1982 when he was arrested for murdering Melinda Lepre. However, a grand jury declined to indict him and he was released. But indeed, Little had begun killing people around this time.
Las Vegas. Describe the Las Vegas victim.
That was in 93.
His earliest confirmed victim is Annie Stewart, who was killed on October 11, 1981, but Little confessed to murdering Mary Jo Brosley as early as 1970. He was finally arrested on September 5, 2012, a full 31 years after his first confirmed victim had been killed.
When I left her up in that little road up there, on the side of that little road, she was like partially concealed by the vegetation. I left her there.
Lonnie David Franklin Jr.
And I was completely shocked when I heard this, because I had never heard anything before about any serial killer in South Central.
This serial killer's nickname is indicative of his long span. Lonnie David Franklin Jr. is better known as the Grim Sleeper, so named because he was inactive between 1988 and 2002. Franklin's first confirmed victim is 29-year-old Deborah Jackson, who was killed in August 1985. However, authorities strongly suspect his involvement in the death of Sharon Dismuke, who was murdered a year and a half earlier.
There was a murder on January 15, 1984. Her name was Sharon Alice Dismuke. Then Deborah Jackson was found murdered in August of 1985 in an alleyway in South Los Angeles.
Franklin's final victim was Janisha Peters, who was found dead in January 2007. All told, the Grim Sleeper killed between 10 and 25 people. He was finally arrested on July 7, 2010 and charged with 10 counts of murder, decades after his crime spree began in the mid-1980s.
Years and years went by, and the case went cold. I was upset. I was really pissed off. They weren't really looking. We weren't trying to find out who hurt me.
Gary Ridgway.
Of course, I didn't know that 2 days later, I was going to be called back to that riverbank just upstream for 2 more bodies.
In the 1980s, 5 bodies were found near Washington's Green River, leading authorities to suspect a serial killer. The Green River Killer was born, and funnily enough, Gary Ridgway was suspected pretty much immediately. Ridgway was considered a suspect in the disappearance of Marie Malvar, and he was even interviewed by the police, but they were unable to link him to the crime and he was released.
I never had a thought that we weren't going to catch him. I just wondered how, when, and where. And I knew I wanted to be a part of it.
By the time he passed a polygraph in 1984, he had already murdered dozens of people. In fact, of Ridgway's 49 confirmed victims, all but 4 were killed between 1982 and 1984. His last known victim was Patricia Yellowrobe in 1998, and Ridgway was finally arrested in 2001.
Look, when you have a chance to solve 50, and you know this guy is never getting out of prison ever again, he will never kill again, and you can give answers to families that have been waiting for answers for 20 years, I would do it again, in a heartbeat.
Dennis Rader.
Say who you are. You're BTK.
I'm BTK, basically that is it. Who are you? Say it. I'm BTK. And after that, the floodgates just open.
BTK was finally brought down by his own hubris. It's poetic. Active in Kansas between 1974 and 1991, BTK killed at least 10 people and often sent taunting letters to the police, fashioning himself as a criminal mastermind. And indeed, he was smart enough to get away with it, for a while at least. After a 13-year hiatus, BTK again began contacting police and media, and in 2005, he sent a floppy disk to Wichita's KSAS-TV.
On February 16, 2005, a local news station receives yet another package from the BTK Killer. Inside it, the item police had been hoping for, a computer disk.
Police then used personal data that was stored on the disk and traced it to one Dennis Rader, a local Cub Scout leader and president of a local church council. He was finally arrested on February 25, 2005, 31 years after his crime spree began in 1974.
We could tell that it was somehow affiliated with Christ Lutheran Church and the Park City Community Public Library. And then the next thing we looked at was statistics, and it shows here that was last saved by Dennis.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Joseph James D'Angelo.
It's so warm in Concord tonight that people have their doors and windows open, but the police are saying lock up tight.
Justice often comes, but sometimes it comes late. Such was the case with Joseph James D'Angelo, who for a long time was known by various monikers, including the Visalia Ransacker, Earons, and the Golden State Killer. His crime spree began in 1974, and between then and 1986, he committed dozens of sexual assaults and murdered at least 13 people.
Getting an awful lot of calls, people reporting prowler calls, suspicious circumstances. Some people even turning in their neighbors.
He was also known to taunt the police, often with obscene phone calls. His story became one of the most infamous cold cases in California history, but thanks to the magic of genetic genealogy, D'Angelo was finally caught and arrested in April 2018. By then, D'Angelo was 72 years old, and his first victim had been dead for over 4 decades.
They have been searching for more than 4 decades, and tonight the major clue that unlocked this just days ago.
Can you think of any other examples? Let us know in the comments below.
The feeling is undescribable. I am so happy. I feel so blessed.